Hello and welcome to the Corporate Escapists TV show and podcast. I am your host, Christine Innes. Now, I am excited, nervous, and just so many other different emotions all rolling into one because I have the incredible Steve Rodgers joining me. So thank you so much, Steve, for being here.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm the one that's nervous. Are you kidding me? You've got this big, huge, great show going in Australia and you're queen of the world. So I'm honored to be on the show.
Look, I really am a huge fan and I just love, obviously, your journey. So let's get through it. First of all, you're a #1 Amazon best-selling book, which is Lead to Goal, which I think is incredible because obviously we need to talk about that. You have the Alchemy Advisors coaching and consulting firm. You're a former Warren Buffett CEO. And the thing that I really connected most is that you experienced a really radical spiritual transformation. And that's obviously evolved so much around it. So I want to try and get as much as I possibly can. I'm going to try not to talk too fast so I don't get so much.
I'm tracking with you so far, no worries.
But yeah, like I'm really excited. So do you want to just sort of share, like obviously one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is what you sort of noticed that obviously at the start of your career to where you are now, what has been one of the biggest changes with you personally, but also what you've seen in business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. When I think I was just speaking with someone about this the other day, actually, about the difference of my state of consciousness and how I pursue business now versus what I did then, and how much business has changed over the last 25 or so years. When I started my corporate ladder, climb in my late 20s and then into my late 40s and then became an entrepreneur in my 50s, I was on the quest, like my hunger for drive and achievement and, outdoing others and, making the boss happy and hitting the numbers and, all of the kudos that you're looking for. And I realized there was this frenzy of this drive for success that was then being defined by others. And what's so different now in my life and what I've come to realize is even though that drive was at sometimes necessary to get me to where I was in my career, I realized I was doing a lot more for external things than for internal satisfaction and peace and harmony and self-fulfillment. And so I think that the differences that I learned was drive is necessary, which is also part of ego. And I write about that in my new book, which is called The Iggy Principles, because ego is necessary and we all have it. But I'm really on this spiritual quest, which I say now that I'm out of the closet being a spiritualist, where when I was in corporate America, I was like kind of ashamed to talk about it to a degree at the level in which it was that big part of my life. And so as I've set that free, it's become, I literally call myself now a spiritual business activist. And so that's how much the moniker is shifted for me. As far as the changes in business, it is definitely way more transparent than in my early days because of social media, because of technology, because of the millennial and XY and XGen, and Gen generation who are not as impressed with status and with money and power just because you have it. There is a sense of talent coming up in the youth that want to make sure that they have a more balanced life, that you're not, going to get their respect just because you have a title. So that has shifted and changed about the companies internally and externally needing to be much more transparent in how they lead, hire, recruit, and communicate with customers.
I love that so much. And I think there's some really key things in there. Like you talked about ego, and I can so relate because there was just something, every time I got a promotion, it fueled something inside of me, but it really was just the outside perspective. Like I wanted everyone's approval. I wanted everyone to think, oh my God, look what she's done, look what she's created and where she's going. Whereas now it's sort of like business is all about, well, what can I do to help serve others? What can I actually bring? And if it hits one person, if it hits 10,000 people, that's great. It's no longer about, that sort of status thing. So I really can relate to that. And I think that there has been a big shift now happening with people that are actually starting to realize that and starting to even downsize in their life to really sort of help complement that change as well. Do you see that effect happening over there as well?
Absolutely. I see that happening even before COVID. And you and I were talking about this pre-show that we were just on. I'm in the United States in California, in San Diego, and unfortunately we're having another surge of COVID and it's increasing, not decreasing. And I know where you're at in Australia, you guys have gotten it under control. However, what I've seen with COVID is by people being forced to work from home, that you're realizing you can do a lot more virtually, that you can do a lot more from your home. And people are, as much as no one wants COVID, they're enjoying more time with family, with peace of mind, with health, whatever it might be. So I think this shift was already happening, but people are demanding that it's no longer just about title and money and status. There has to be, you know, that work-life balance thing that we throw around, but people are wanting that more and more, because I think this transparency, and a lot of times when you climb ladders of success, you realize, and you get there and you go, is this all there is? Like, I thought it was going to feel different. I thought it was going to be longer. I thought I would be more fulfilled. And so that's becoming more and more transparent. And I think that that shift is happening, and people are wanting to make change that happens because they're making it happen. But when you have a brick upside the head moment, as I call it, like getting fired or a company closing or whatever might happen, or COVID, that was a brick upside the head moment for the entire global world, it said, okay, Mother Nature and the universe said, stop. You don't think you can slow down. You don't think you can work from home. You don't think you can spend more time with your family. You don't think your company could shut down for a week. Well, let me just show you that that actually can happen. So when those things happen, you know, that old quote that says necessity is the mother of invention, that's exactly what happened. So I'm seeing that, as much as it's horrendous right now about what's happening in the world with the global shakeup, I do believe there already is positive results coming from it. And I believe the after effect of this will be a lot of changes within the workplace, within the corporate world, and it's going to fuel a lot more entrepreneurs. It's going to fuel a lot more people that are either forced into being an entrepreneur, or now they're choosing to, because they realize, God, I kind of like working at home, or I kind of like being more virtual. So I'm seeing a lot of shifts. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I like, it's definitely happening here, and I think one of the best things that has happened, it's about us now having conversations, not only just with everybody else, but it's having those internal conversations with ourselves, actually asking those hard questions, going, well, what do I really like? You know, like, I thought that I wanted this, but is it okay to now shift direction? And I think the best thing too is, you know, it doesn't matter what age we are at. And I think we've always had a stigma that, you know, you have to chase your dreams and that within your 20s and your 30s. Whereas now people are starting to realize that age is just a number. Like, it doesn't really define when you can shift or pivot, you know, whatever we want to talk about. But you
Yes.
can actually go after that regardless of age, wherever you're living, demographic. Like, nothing really matters anymore, because we are just immersed in so much, like, technology, the availability around us now, and people are now forced to make these connections, and it doesn't have to be face to face. It's just online like this.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, and I think, you know, I'm seeing more of that as well. I was noticing some stuff on LinkedIn yesterday where somebody was praising their mother, who was 65 years old, who just had applied for the PhD degree for her psychology major, because she was always wanting to do that. You look at some of these talent shows that they have on TV, like The Voice or whatever, and you see people, you know, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s getting into saying, hey, I've always wanted to do this, and I love this, and I'm going to give it a shot. So yeah, you're never too old, and the playing ground has been leveled with technology, because you can be between here and Australia in 2 seconds by me hitting Zoom and you and I are talking. It's no longer so much built on the class or caste system. It's no longer just built on status, or if you came from money, or if you came from education or not. I'm a guy that barely graduated high school. I mean, I moved out of my house when I was 17 years old, and, you know, got a few years of college under my belt, but I never finished. But it didn't stop me from creating a path in corporate America, and also now as an entrepreneur, because I knew what was possible, and I knew that I could create this life for myself of what I wanted. And I knew it was going to take some bumps and hurdles and bruises and cuts and stuff along the way, if you really wanted, because, you know, no pain, no gain, as they say. And that pain, it can be emotional, that pain can be spiritual, that pain can be to the ego, but it's a trade-off. So if you really want something in creation of life, business, you know, and it's nothing wrong with corporate America. I take a lot of great things in my entrepreneur world that I learned in corporate America. I mean, whether it's business planning or P&Ls or structure or balance sheets or HR or marketing, all that stuff came from me being on the corporate environment. The difference is I'm now doing it for myself and others because I choose to, I want to, and I'm doing it in my way, versus fitting into a box or a system or a structure that maybe I didn't always concur or agree with. It doesn't mean that corporate is wrong. It just means, for me personally, I outgrew that, but I wouldn't be where I am today had I not had that journey. I mean, it was a great, wonderful, you know, training ground for me of being an executive and being an entrepreneur, for sure.
And I think that's really important, because a lot of times that we can so easily sit in that, and I always say it's like the victim mentality, which is, the poor me, oh, this happened to me, and that really was awful. But when we actually see the learning lessons, it really allows us to apply so much more to our life and to, the next step or the next journey that you put it at. And, I'm very similar. From working in corporate world, I learned so much, and staff management was one of them. And that's great, because now I get to help, I've got a virtual assistant, so it's really easy for me to direct them what I need them to do. So there is so much, and I really hope that people can take that part from it and really learn from it, opposed to just going, oh, well, that was really crappy, and go, okay, well, it may be, but let's shift it and go, what did you actually learn from it?
Yeah, agreed. Well, even with your title of your show, I was thinking about the title of your show, Corporate Escapists, and I would assume that most of your audience people are people that migrated from corporate America, or they thought they escaped it. And that's great, and that's fine, and that was part of my path as well. And my path was not chosen, it was forced. After being in a company for 15 to 20 years and climbing the ladder from management to executive to eventually CEO of the company for quite a few years, in a downsized in a downsized financial catastrophe type world in the real estate space, after I downsized half the company, I then got downsized. So that's part of the path you pay. However, I changed my thinking in that space of being in corporate America, that I still had an entrepreneurial mind within the corporate environment. So the corporate escapist could be you're staying in corporate America, but you're just changing your perspective, or you're changing your mindset about escaping. Yes, this is corporate. All corporate is a description of, quote, corporation, which is a structure that allows businesses to work and coexist. It doesn't mean your mind and your daily experience has to be in that in a negative way. So you can also escape being a corporate trapped person by just shifting your mindset as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things, is I want people to be able to wake up and live this amazing day on repeat, so that, it doesn't matter whether you're working for yourself or you're working for somebody else. It's doing what you love, and that it's aligned with your values, it's aligned with your passion and your purpose. And, similar to what you just said before, it doesn't matter about status anymore. Like, if you are happy packing shelves, or you're happy, working in childcare, go and do it, because the happiness is something that you can't buy. It's something you have to give yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that, we call it the Great Western Disease, and I know it's more of a global disease, but it's called I will be happy when, fill in the blank. So that corporate, not corporate, but that disease of mindset of I will be happy when I have the title. I will be happy when my house is paid off. I will be happy when I have 2 kids. I will be happy when I have the white picket fence. I will be happy when, fill in the blank. Well, the message is be happy now. Be happy present in the present moment on a daily basis, and realize you always have a choice. And the way I continue to strive in my happiness and my peace of mind is realizing if I didn't like the environment that I was in, I always had a choice to change it. There's always the power of choice, and we either choose to stay where we're at in a situation, an environment, a relationship, a company, or within that company itself. You can choose. There was many times I shifted positions within a company because I made it known that I wanted to go from this department to that department, and I wanted to learn about this, and I did the work what it took. So I changed my mindsets, but it wasn't about being happy when that happened. It was about I had to find a way within my immediate environment to find happiness in the small things, which then became big things. And so that fleetingness of, I'll be happy when I retire, I'll rest when I retire, or whatever it might be. So my message to people is, as well, is find out what that inner passion is, that inner connection. And you mentioned being of service. And if you're in servant leadership mindset, regardless of what your position is, it's much easier to find purpose and meaning and fulfillment and happiness on serving something higher than yourself, i.e. others or a higher power, in your quest, because then it's you can never be quenched from happiness enough, because you're doing in that work. That means your thirst for happiness and being of service is then a vehicle that you can never get enough of, because you're obviously finding ways to create joy in other people's lives, which is really what many people that I have talked to that are successful over the years, when they get the money, the status, the et cetera, that's why many people do eventually go into philanthropic work or charitable work, or they start foundations, because they realize it feels a little empty and hollow just to have the money or just to have the status, unless they're really doing something within their job or outside of their job that's giving of something that's making their heart sing, or that's making their eyes light up on a daily or weekly basis. So that's what my same message that you have is to folks to do that now, not wait.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One thing that you've mentioned a few times is the, being authentic. And I really find that that is something that so many people are starting to learn a lot more about themselves and really what, authenticity actually means. And I think that, also, as you said, in business, we need to be authentic because mind the language, but a lot of people are starting to see through the BS that's coming through in marketing, and they actually want to know, what does your business stand for? What are your values? What is your purpose with it? They don't always want the shiny bright lights and, buy me, buy me. They really want to get to know you on a personal level so they can do that connection. Do you find now that in business that if you're not being authentic, that it's not going to be sustainable for a long purpose?
Yeah, I do find that more and more. And there's many, many companies that either through arrogance or through chasing the bottom line or through whatever it might be, that just don't exist anymore because they thought that their way was the only way, or they had the holy grail. And because of that arrogance or not being authentic about, they could need help, they could change, their product could shift. I mean, look at Kodak, look at Blockbuster Videos, those companies that were pretty household names they're no longer. You look at Sears and Roebuck, it's not that they weren't authentic, but they didn't authentic. Being authentic is not just about being yourself. It is that, but it's also being vulnerable enough to realize that you don't always have all the answers, and that other people may have answers you don't have, and that things change and shift. And the consumer wants you to adapt to them. The consumer is not expecting them to adapt to you. So sometimes big brands, big products, big services, they keep thinking they're going to just be the only ones that can influence the consumer. And that used to be more the case when you had 3 or 4 TV channels and you controlled the airways of advertising. Now you have thousands of choices on a daily basis at the click of a finger, where you can find information, you can find data, you can get different ads, different groups, different whatever. So you get to choose in the instance about where you resonate. And now that is scattered. The consciousness of what companies used to put out there, they now have to cater to, quote, the entire demographic of the world in diversity, in male and female, black, white, religious backgrounds, and they no longer get to control as much as they used to. Now, it doesn't mean that advertising is still not effective. It is. But your point is well taken, that the sustainability of being a product and a brand that's respected and continues to have sales increase or be able to roll out new products that work, it's when there is some kind of a trust relationship with that company and the consumer.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm starting to see now that even myself, the way that I approach sort of marketing my business is very organic, and it is really about building those connections, and talking to people and sharing my story, and so that people can connect with it. And if they feel drawn to it, they feel drawn to it. Somebody once told me, and I'd like to get your opinion, to say that you should fall in love with your customers, not your products. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that. Well, I think that is a great quote, and I love it. I also think you need to make sure you should fall in love with yourself and continue to nourish and foster yourself as you're then finding ways to love others, i.e. your customer. One of the things I told myself when I started a consulting company 5 years ago, the Alchemy Advisors, is I said, I'm going to make myself my first client. And as my first client, I need to treat myself with the utmost respect, the utmost truth and honesty, the utmost authentic connection and relationship on how I'm communicating with myself about what's honest and not. So then if I can carry that relationship with myself and my higher power, the ability to transfer that out and do that same duplicatable relationship with customers, whether it's consulting clients, or in this case, if people are like selling a product, then you can make sure that listening and connecting in that authentic relationship of making them your trusted friend and advisor, they're then going to guide and tell you about what they want, what they need, what they are looking for within their families for necessity or pleasure or whatever it might be. So I think there's so much truth in that. Absolutely.
Okay, I love it. I'm trying to like just soak everything in, and then I'm like going, no, it's okay, Christine, you can go and watch this back as many times as you want now, so it's okay. So I'll be getting the notebook out and just writing everything down. I just want to say, like, thank you so much for all your time. I wanted to ask you one last question, and what would be one word that you would take into 2021?
I'm going to say one word, but I'm going to give a descriptor of it. Forgiveness. Forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. Of all the things I've learned in my life about skills, products, services, techniques, whatever it might be, whether that's personal, spiritual, business, or whatever, the power of forgiveness in your life, with your family, your friends, your associates, your previous employees, your customer, whatever it might be, any of that baggage that we carry around, whether it's, mad at your government, mad at the coronavirus, mad at whatever, that angst and energy that we have, the best of things that I've ever learned, and the advice I can give anybody when they say, what one thing could I do that would shift my life the quickest and the fastest? And I would say, think about that person in your life right now, mother, father, brother, sister, friend, past job, boyfriend, girlfriend. Who in your life do you really feel you still need to forgive, that you still think about with angst and anger and hardship? And who might you need to ask forgiveness from, who may be harboring those feelings from yourself? Getting to that ability in 2021 as you're launching into your business, not just thinking about your business plan from a perspective of marketing and advertising and client acquisition and brand, thinking about that powerfulness of it. In doing that act, it allows you to free up so much energy and so much new reservoir of empathy and connection that your shift of how you do business will change, and will change for the better.
I could not have said that in any better way, because I know firsthand the power of that, and it's like a whole weight just gets lifted off you. And you're right, it just frees up so much more energy that you can focus on, opposed to, looking back and going, oh, this person did this and that. So thank you again. I really cannot appreciate so much of your time and just the amount of wisdom that you've imparted here on this episode. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Christine. And thanks for the good work you're doing. Keep it up and keep following your passion and keep spreading the good word.
I certainly will. This is my legacy, so I can't see me doing anything differently. So absolutely. I'm going to pop all of the details of how you can reach out to Steve below. Honestly, watch this, save it, share it, because this is something that everybody needs to learn, especially if you're starting a business in 2021. There is so much in this that you need to get out of it. Always remember to follow your passion and to live life to the fullest. Love and light to you all, and I'll be back next week for another episode.